Let's bring in Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Congresswoman Crockett, thanks for being with us. The last time I saw you, I believe it was at the debate, and you were mounting a stalwart defense of President Biden. A lot has obviously changed between now and then, and I wonder what you make of his decision to leave the race, and also what your constituents are telling you about his choice of his vice president to take his place atop the ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, the love that you just displayed between the two of them, I just feel like I'm in the middle of that love session as well. I love both of them so very much and believe in all the work that they have done together. And it was interesting to listen to y'all talk about here just a second ago, some of these accomplishments. And one of the things that people fail to acknowledge is that all that this president was able to do, he did it really in 2 years. We know that this has been a completely dysfunctional Congress in the 118th, but the majority of these accomplishments weren't accomplished in 4 years. They were accomplished in 2 years. So I just want to throw that out there. I must say that my constituency stands very strongly with the vice president. Overwhelmingly, the delegates from Texas 30 said, yes, we are all in for the vice president. But they also were calling me, and as I was standing strong with the president, they were thanking me for doing that. So it's a really emotional time on the Hill, if I'm being perfectly honest. There's definitely all these different feelings, right? On one side, some of us definitely feel a lot of sadness, but on the other side, we feel a lot of hope. Hopeful has been the word of the week. And so we are so excited to support the candidacy of our vice president to become the next president of the United States.
When you talk about the emotions in Congress, I wonder what you make of the Republican response. I mean, House Republicans, conservatives have been calling the vice president of the United States, quote, an unqualified DEI hire. I know you have thoughts about this.
I absolutely do. Listen, this tells you everything that you need to know about these clowns. They have nothing of substance to contribute, as they normally don't. I mean, this is exactly why we literally are supposed to be working next week, and we're not even coming to work to make sure that we can pass a budget, because they have no plan. I need the American people to wake up. They have no plan unless we start talking about Project 2025, which doesn't do anything for any of us. And one of the things that they continuously push in Project 2025 are these unwarranted attacks on anyone that is diverse in any way, and they try to pretend as if we don't have credentials. But my question is, as you continue to say that somehow J.D. Vance is prepared and qualified to be the vice president of the United States, I'm sorry, but this guy is walking into a role with way less qualifications than our vice president. If we want to look at the qualifications that were required of her before she got the job, she had been elected a prosecutor. She had been elected the attorney general. She had been elected to the U.S. Senate before she was ever the vice president. J.D. Vance has been in the Senate for not even 2 years. So what I don't want to hear from that side is about a DEI hire, because what I can tell you for sure is that this is them talking about the fact that they literally just cannot measure up to my vice president and soon to be their president of the United States.
I knew you would have something to say. Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, it is great to hear from you. Thanks for sharing some time with us this evening. Lawrence,
she's so cool.
Yes, okay. and the feelings are big on this one,
yes.
Right? I mean, the dog whistles aren't even dog whistles at this point. Lawrence, I just think it is, first of all, DEI is cover for this is a person of color. We want to talk about race without saying the word racism. On the other side, she makes the point, J.D. Vance has served in the Senate for like 10 minutes. And before that, as Rachel Maddow likes to say, was hatched in a lab by a bunch of tech bros. I mean, and Donald Trump is a reality TV star that stumbled his way into the presidency through stoking grievance and division. I think it's really rich that they're throwing shade on Kamala Harris's qualifications.
So as the Congresswoman was speaking, I was taking notes, making notes of my list off the top of my head of vice presidential candidates chosen for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Lyndon Johnson, Dan Quayle, Dick Cheney, Spiro Agnew, Joe Biden. Lyndon Johnson, the Kennedys from Boston needed a Southern, a Texan to make sure they could carry the South. He needed someone older than JFK, then the youngest presidential candidate in history. Dan Quayle, George H.W. Bush needed someone younger because that was just about as old as we thought presidential candidates could get. Dan Quayle's qualifications, other than his age, were zero, absolutely zero. That's called diversity of age. Dick Cheney, very inexperienced governor of Texas going into the presidency, needed foreign policy experience. He just grabbed it off the shelf with Dick Cheney. Diversity of experience. Spiro Agnew. Richard Nixon was so thrilled that Spiro Agnew was what Richard Nixon called ethnic. He wanted that diversity. The California white Republican wanted that diversity, he thought, geographic. Spiro Agnew's from Maryland. And Joe Biden couldn't be more unlike Barack Obama, and the diversity, equity, and inclusion in the ticket of Barack Obama and Joe Biden was completed by Joe Biden. It was the old white guy who was the diversity hire for that ticket. So none of these were objectionable choices on those grounds of diversity, age diversity, geographic diversity, even political diversity with LBJ and JFK. And diversity is what the vice presidential choice has usually been about. I mean, to show you an example of how glaring it is when it's not, it's Bill Clinton and Al Gore. Like, that's just like, no one was thinking about any diversity at all. You know, it was just, who do we think is going to be a good campaigner with this guy? That was it.
And doubling down on the idea of young Biggie taking the mic.
Yeah, but almost every other time you can think of, without trying hard, you're going to come up with diversity in the choice of the vice president.
And by the way, in this case, the search for a running mate for Vice President Harris is literally about finding the diversity of the right white man to put with her, because they're like, they need the diversity to make sure that they're shoring up different constituencies. They're thinking about region. They're thinking about, do we want somebody from the Midwest? Do we want somebody from one of those states? Like, no one is saying that that is objectionable.
But can I just translate? Can I translate what's happening? It isn't even it isn't even in its most biting analysis about what it's about. They don't have anything else yet.
Yeah.
I mean, they're stumped. Donald Trump wouldn't have picked J.D. Vance if he thought there was any, because Donald Trump would never give up anything. Donald Trump didn't leave when he lost in what lifelong Republican Chris Krebs described the most secure election in American history. So Donald Trump never really contemplated that someone would give up a job that he left his vice president to be hung to hang on to. So like, there's no part of his brain, there's no part of his circle that could tell him this could happen.
Yeah.
And so the idea that this is all they've got is because this is all they've got. They'll come up with something else, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But on day 4, this is all they've got.
And it's pathetic, and it's not helpful for winning white suburban voters who usually don't want to be associated with just sort of barking dog racism, which is what we're starting to see.
And misogyny.
And misogyny, right. Oh, we can't even begin to talk about the Fox Business comments of today. Maybe we'll talk about it after the break, because we have the case and tells. We appreciate